Financial freedom can come at any age. You just have the mindset and the know-how and just have some perseverance, and you can get there and just live the best life you could ever want.
Have you been thinking about where you want to go next, but you aren't sure if you have the finances to do your dream life after corporate? That's what we're going to be talking about today. Welcome to Women Leaders on the Move, a Her C-Suite radio podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Benamou, and every week I bring you inspirational stories and ideas to help you with the mosaic of your life and your career. And today I am talking with Lisa Sakai. She is an amazing expert in planning your retirement, but she doesn't think about retirement. It's financial freedom. She is a bucket list financial planner, and she helps women reroute their lives according to their vision. We go in deep on what you need to know, and there's a special information at the end that we talk about, a collaboration that we're doing together. So let's get started now. Lisa, I'm so excited to welcome you to Women Leaders on the Move. Thanks for being on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm always happy to talk to you.
This is going to be such an enlightening conversation for our listeners, and I can't wait for them to hear it. But before we do that, I always like to ask a little bit about you so that if they missed our first interview, which I will have in the show notes, they will learn about you now. So you are really focused on a very interesting area in your career and what you do and how you help women. So I'd love for you to share what you do and kind of what got you interested in it.
I do financial advising, so everybody can tune out right after I say that, right? Because that's the most boring thing for everybody. But essentially, I help people get to financial freedom as quickly as possible. And I do specialize in working with women. I work a lot with professional women. I also have a little bit of a niche area that I work in with women without kids because I don't have children. So there's different planning with that. But most of my ladies I work with are professional women who are trying to figure out what they truly want. They've just been kind of going through the grind, working their way up the ladder. And now they're like, do I want to stay here? Do I not want to stay here? Can I retire? What do I want to do in retirement? It's that time in their life. And that can start as early as like 40, 45, with this retire early phenomenon that's going on, which I think is great. And so I do that. And basically, I got into the industry kind of as a weird whim. I was a teacher before, and they were advertising for teachers to enter into life insurance. And I went into life insurance and I kind of pushed over to the planning because I don't see how you can talk to people about life insurance if you don't know what they're trying to accomplish. And I just find it's such an interesting way of putting puzzle pieces together with people of what kind of life they really want. And it's really not about what I want. Our company is called One Vision Retirement because it's not about my vision. It's about their vision. And the one vision is their vision. We've been in the industry a long time, but our company's been around for 4.5 years now. So that's a little bit about me.
Some of the things that you've come across as you're helping women plan, and I know you said people start planning at 40, but really it's not ever too early to start thinking about. In fact, the earlier you plan, the more successful outcome you'll have, because then you really can build the blocks to get to where you want to go. If people are thinking about this and they're, oh, I don't need to worry about it yet, let's dispel that myth.
Absolutely. It's not really about retirement. That's the thing is I always say I help people get to financial freedom because for some people that's I never want to retire. I want to do what I'm doing for the rest of my life. Some people it's like, get me out of here. I want to retire and be on a cruise around the world. And some people are like, I don't know what I want to do. I want to stop doing this at a certain point, but do I want to completely stop working? And I would say most people are kind of in that last category. What do I want to do? I'm not really sure. I know I would be like that. I mean, my husband and I do our own planning and, we're like, well, we kind of want to be done at this point, but like, do I want to be done? Do I want to just move to advice only? Like, what do I want to do? And so a lot of people go through this. And so I think instead of thinking of it as retirement, think of it as financial freedom, which means I can do what I want when I want. I don't have to worry about finances for this. I'm not going to buy a jet, but, I can get through what I need to get through and take some chances and not completely throw my financial picture off. And essentially, that's what people should be striving for. So essentially, you could be 20 years old and starting that. I remember my dad started a Roth for me at 18. I was like, what is this? And I'm so thankful he did. It's a nice account for us now. It's just different things like that that I think there's never a too early to do it because we all want to get to financial freedom as fast as possible. For most people I talk to, I would say they're an individual, they have their own thing. But I would say 99.999% of people want financial freedom. I really haven't met anybody who'd be like, oh no, I want to feel like a slave to my income and never have anything saved and feel stressed out all the time. I think that if you start thinking of it that way and saying, look, I could be 35, get to financial freedom, and then still keep working. And then I don't have to feel as stressed out. I don't have to worry about losing my job or not taking this chance or whatever. I think that's the difference is that people need to stop thinking of it as retirement and more like financial freedom.
As you think about financial freedom, what are some of the buckets that you help people realize to get clarity on what's important to them?
So we do a thing called bucket list planning, and we talk to them about what is on their bucket list, and we actually put detail around it because we all have that girlfriend that's been like, "I'm going to go to Europe," and it's been like 15 years, and you're like, "When are you going? Like, are we ever going to do this?" People have these very broad ideas of, I want to travel, I want to spend time with family, like very nice, broad ideas. They don't have any detail to them. So we make them put detail around it and we actually add it to their planning. We first focus, of course, on getting them on track, but we also work that into it. I just was doing a video for my YouTube channel on summer, how we're entering summer and summer can be very expensive and people don't realize it because we're kind of in that YOLO, moment. We're outside, we're brunching, we're doing our thing. People kind of forget about their planning and what I talked about in that video, which is this balance and try to do that throughout our lives is how do we balance having fun and also getting the basis set so that we're not stressed out later on. So I would say that's another bucket is finding that balance. And then I would say a third bucket is bigger things that we might, I mean, I guess this is kind of bucket list. Do we want a second home? I feel like these are big decisions that people just kind of fall into, and that's not a fall into thing. So I think bigger planning ideas that aren't necessarily like travel or something that people would say is a bucket list item. So I would say that those are kind of things that people don't think about. Also, I would say for anybody, I know you work a lot with women who are maybe starting businesses and things. So you might want to start a bucket of not really an emergency fund, but like, you're creating your own little startup fund for your business, maybe becoming an investor in your own business in some respects, because starting a business can be expensive. And I hate to say it, but there are some people out there that take advantage of these people starting businesses and they start throwing all this stuff that they should be buying and people they should be hiring. And all of a sudden they're spending like 10 grand a month and they've got one client that maybe gives them $1,000 a month. And they're like, what happened? So I think having that money set aside kind of takes that stress out of like, should I do it or should I not do it? And it also gives you constraint in some respect of how much is too much? How quickly am I going through this money? That kind of thing. So I would say that's probably another bucket people need to be thinking about.
When I started, I was an investor in my own company. I tried to do the raise. We've talked about this a little bit, but I was advised to go into Delaware. I changed my LLC to an incorporation. I went into Delaware, double tax. Don't do it. Any listener, please do not go into Delaware. Bad idea. You do not need it. You hire advisors to think that they are going to advise you on the right thing. That is not always the case. And you get advice just to what you were saying of, oh, you should hire this marketing firm or you should do these things when you could do so much yourself. So find the tool to get it done. And you're right, women and men too sometimes don't realize it. And having that income set aside before you know what to do. And that's one of the things I'm really excited about that you and I are going to partner on with helping women with their portfolio career, which is this idea of not retirement, but the life that you want to live, that financial freedom and knowing what to do. So as you think about life in a portfolio career, and I always talk about slices, like how do you want to do your slices? And you must be working with people in that way. the slice? How do you advise people on those slices?
I would say the first slice people need to think about is what does that life after paycheck, let's say, mean to you? A lot of people don't think enough about that. They don't, like I was telling you a story about how my husband and I found this really wonderful cruise, and it was like 28 days down in Australia and New Zealand, and it sounded great. I'm like, I work from home. I could do that. And then you look at the time difference and you're like, oh, I'd be working like at midnight. What kind of vacation is that? People think they can do it all because a lot of us are virtual and all this stuff, but they don't really think about, oh, that doesn't fit with going to New Zealand. That might fit with going to New York if you're in California or something. It doesn't really fit. So I think people need to spend a little bit more time of like what they truly want that to look like, the balance between maybe a new business, maybe a new board position, maybe whatever they're doing in that next step in their life with what do they want to do. And so you see people make it work. There's all these companies, these women who are out in RVs with their, families and stuff, and they're running a business and doing their thing. And then you have people who just cannot do that balance. Think if that's actually what you want, or if that's kind of the trend and you think you should be able to do that. But if that makes your stomach kind of go, ugh, then don't do it. I could have made that vacation work, but it made me say, is that gonna be really the vacation I want? It wasn't, so we put it on hold and, we'll do it some other time. But I think in some respects, that's the first thing is really defining what you truly envision that wonderful life being. And being honest, do you actually wanna work or do you not actually wanna work? Because building a business, as you know, is very difficult to do. It's not the easy thing. We always hear about, Sandra over there that like built this business within 3 months and she's making 100 grand. That's lovely. That's not most of us. It's not. And so it's a different challenge, and sometimes people are so burned out from their day job that they don't really want to take that challenge on. They're like, I want something easy. Well, that's not being a business owner or a certain type of business owner, right? Maybe that's more of a board position or something. So that's the first thing I would say. The second is, of course, financial house, making sure you can afford it, having your kind of three magical numbers, I call them, and we'll talk about that in the partnership we're doing, but having those numbers really sorted out, having those stress tests on there. We always see the rosy picture of like, oh, I make, X amount percent, and this is what I get. Well, what happens if you don't make that percent? What does that picture look like? And really doing that stress test on it and making sure you can get through good and bad times. And I would say liquidity is a big part of that too. If something comes up, where are we getting the money from? Is it all in 401k, IRA money that you have to be 59 and a half to access? And on top of it, you have to pay tax because you deferred tax. So things like that, really thinking about your cash flow and that kind of thing is really important. I would say another slice is mentally, are you prepared for it? Do you want to jump from your full-time work to a consultant or to a business? Or do you want to break? A lot of us have burnt ourselves out. I know I work a lot, like I said, I work a lot with women who don't have kids too. And sometimes women took a break a little bit when they were having kids and got back into it. These women didn't, obviously, because they didn't have kids. So they've been pushing and pushing and pushing for 30 years, and they're like, I don't I don't have the mental capacity to do this. And not just that, retirement or whatever you choose can be kind of depressing. It really can. It can put a strain on who you are, who you think you are. You might have some superpower skills that you've been really proud of that you don't flex anymore because you're not doing that anymore. It can be a real mental strain a little bit. It's definitely a new position to be in. So I would say that's another slice. And I'm sure there's others I'm missing, but those are kind of the three ones that came to mind right away.
When you were talking about the reality of when you leave your corporate role, there's that moment of silence. You've left your corporate role. You're used to being on the phone. You're used to being in meetings. You're used to going with the team. And now there's no team. So now you have a calendar you have to figure out. There's all these little nuances, right, that come up that people don't even know. And then you have the conversation. Well, tell me what you're doing now. And that can really throw people off because they're not sure what they're going to do. So I think exploring portfolio life is a great answer because even if you're not sure where you're going to go, you are exploring. And I think that's intriguing to people. And they say, oh, tell me more about that. What makes you excited? And making connections is so important.
Oh, it is. And that's that mental health part of it. Cause I feel like if they join a community like yours or another group of women who are trying to figure it out, I can't imagine what it's like to just wake up on Monday and there's nothing. And you know that Tuesday's not going to have anything and Wednesday's not going to have anything. At some point, maybe you decide to leave your work and go into retirement or whatever, and you'll have some busyness for a little bit, but there will be those days you're sitting there on a Thursday and you're like, "What am I doing today?" That's a hard place to be in. It can kind of feel lonely, especially if you're doing it earlier than others. Like, let's say you have friends who are going to retire at 65 and you decide to step back at 55. That's a long time to be waiting for them to go out to brunch on a Thursday, you know? So it's definitely difficult. You've got to start really figuring out who you are outside of your work and your position and that kind of thing. Maybe even 5 years beforehand would be a really good idea. Maybe take up painting or do whatever that thing is that lights you up so that you have an idea of what you want and what you're good at outside of that corporate environment that maybe you're in right now.
How do you make the windshield be bigger than your rear view mirror? And if you had this life of success and you were an executive, whatever it was, and then you go to this new thing. I experienced this recently and I had this whole breakthrough moment with my coach. And I was like, I have to flip this around because I'm feeling like the rear view mirror was feeling bigger. And that's crazy to me. But we all have those moments. And so that's where it's really important to kind of get grounded in who you are, what you value, what's important to you at every stage that you're going through. So whether you're early 40s, late 30s, mid 50s, it's going to change, but knowing the things that really are important to who you are as a person is not going to change. I value time with my family. I value being able to see my friends or whatever that is so important. And if you're one of those drivers that a lot of the women that we work with are, where they're driven and they're doing all the work all the time, sometimes that true north can get a little bit off kilter. So we're going to help you get back to the true north, which I'm so excited about. So, for our listeners, we are launching a program, Portfolio Career. It's going to be in August. We're going to have all the details soon, but we're excited. And I'm so excited to do this with you because I think women don't understand some of the things we're talking about how do you be purposeful? What's the framework? How do you know if you can afford to do the freedom that you're talking about? And I can't wait for you to share that in our course. So, it's going to be so fun.
I know. It would be nice to give women permission to listen to themselves. But I really feel like what you are building is how do you listen to what you truly want and be okay with that? And that it's not the same thing as Sandra over there is doing, that you are doing what is best for you. And that looks different for everybody.
Yeah, it's unique to each one of us. And that's the beautiful thing. If you had one last piece of advice for our listeners, if they're thinking about their financial freedom, what is the one thing that they could do now to start thinking about it?
So oftentimes, we get into busy seasons like summer, like holidays. It's been like 6 months since we looked at our accounts. I don't know how many people I've asked because I do this for a living. So I say, how much do we have saved everywhere? And they have a round number that's not even close to what the number is because they haven't bothered to put an Excel spreadsheet together just to add them up. And it's okay not to look at your portfolios all the time, but I do think we need to start actually paying attention to it because if you look at your credit card at least once a week and just look at what you're buying, you're going to see what your spending habits are while you have a paycheck coming in. And to expect it to be different when a paycheck is not coming in necessarily, the steady every biweekly paycheck, because as a business owner, it's totally different, then you will have a much better sense of yourself on how you are in spending and what guardrails you might need to put around yourself. People come to me to try to help them budget, and it doesn't work because I can't tell people what to buy and not to buy. That's got to come from inside. So I say, Even if you just schedule once a week on Thursdays at 9 o'clock while you're having your coffee, just to look at your credit card and see what you are spending your money on, that's probably the first step of really getting to financial freedom as quickly as possible.
I can't wait for August because it's going to be here before we know it. But for our listeners who want to know more about you and all the amazing things you're doing, where should they go to find you?
They can always go to our website, which is onevisionretire.com. I would say I do have a lot of information coming out on the YouTube channel as well, which you can find just searching for my name, and they can find some interesting information that's obviously free because it's on YouTube. So,
I'm going to have all of this in the notes. And Lisa, thank you so much.
absolutely. It's always great talking to you.
Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. I hope that if you are thinking about a portfolio career, but you're not sure what to do, I hope you'll join us in August. Schedule a call with me to learn all about our program. Lisa and I would love for you to do our 5-week program that helps you get clarity and have the framework to live your best life yet. As always, if you found this podcast helpful, I would be so grateful if you would share it with a friend or colleague. That's how she grows and we grow. Keep shining your light bright. The world needs you.